I think yeah, there were few points that were quite, I mean, interesting to me when I'm going to this session. So presentation, let's go ahead. Okay. So the last question, if you were in charge of the, let's say, ministry, then what alternate maybe options you might have in order to either take, I mean, go for this activity or completely not go for this activity, or if you want to improve your design. So the first thing that I would like to comment on that is that you consider yourself not someone who is actually conducting evaluation, but you are actually commissioning a team of evaluators who might be applying for evaluation of that program. Then you might be in a position of executive decisions to either commission it or not. Then there are a few things that we need to keep in mind that uh, either to go with this or not. So somebody talked about the cost effectiveness of this program, but in terms of the budget, that's really important. But we can also calculate there that how much it might cost the government to scale up the program in order for those effects to reach to the individual households, how much it will cost in terms of dollars, in terms of rupees. So that can also be one of the idea that from the cost effectiveness point of view. But on the other hand, yeah, as Professor Astor mentioned, this is not that simple that we simply conclude that, okay, by looking at the statistical results there, and we are having a decrease in household expenditures, and we say that, okay, no. Um, um, uh, Generalizing a policy or scaling up a reform or a particular project or intervention, we have to think a lot about the potential problems, because once you scale up, then you cannot undo that, because the funds might have been spent in that particular sector, and then we can run the risk of this opportunity cost of that money. We could have used that money on some other productive purpose. Yeah. So but there were some points related to, if you are not doing it, then some other agency is conducting this evaluation. This actually takes us to the evaluation, I mean, uh, credible evaluations. I mean, what are those evaluations that we think about, that those are standard evaluation? So for that purpose, we actually need to follow certain evaluation standards, and those, some of those are sort of universally agreed kind of principles of evaluation, but others might be tailored to the local context of that country or that local government that we are dealing with. So I'll begin with this important, I mean, the importance of this evaluation standards. So we need to be aware of the problems, the concerns that could be there, and that could make this results questionable, results of this intervention questionable, or maybe if we scale up, then that could be a risky thing. Then the first thing I just discussed about it, but the other thing is that uh, having an understanding of those standards actually help us support the evaluation results and recommendations, and uh, to support the stakeholders who are making decisions in this particular area. And then, because we cannot do things like out of the box and we coming up with some really good results and we scale up, we also look into, as Professor Esther mentioned, that there are a lot of other studies that have been done in this particular area, and we can also look into those studies. What are their findings? If our findings are different than their findings normally, then probably we might be mistaken in our design, or maybe we should think about it one more time. Referring to the literature is also very important. But I'll begin the first standard, very important one: independence. The evaluation process should be done in a way that's completely independent of the political, organizational, or local pressures. So the basic idea of this, evidence-based policymaking is that we generate a result that purely depends on what actually happens there, is per our theory of change. But if those key assumptions behind theory of change are violated, for example, there is a political pressure, organizational pressure, or maybe the evaluation process is not completely independent of the ministry, then probably the ministry can have, as somebody mentioned there, that this could be the inflated results of the ministry. Ministry could overestimate their results for their own sort of showing their performance. So for that purpose, it is really important to for evaluation process to be done completely independent of that sort of ministerial pressure or organizational pressure, whatsoever organization is there. And also the information in the autonomy of the team should be ensured, because if the team is deciding on choosing a control group and a treatment group, and this criteria is set there, and the selection process is decided, if that process is influenced in some way, that could be the problem. So evaluation team is supposed to be completely independent of this activity, and they should be exclusively focusing on how good those results could be, and truly attributing the results to the program. If there is no effect of the program, that's still a finding. That is still a good finding, because there is a scientific process that you have gone through, and you have come up with this conclusion that we have found no effect and no substantial effect of the program. That's a learning process. Actually, we do not necessarily have to have a very stronger effect of the program because we have spent money, because now you are doing pilot project, and next you are scaling up. So it's better to run the risk of scaling up while you know that the evaluation process was influenced or some way not independent of the influence. Or different types of independence can be there: organizational independence, structural independence. Structural independence actually means that the evaluation process should also be funded in a way that should not be conditioned uh, with showing the performance for the ministry or for the department, right? So normally it's preferred that if evaluation of a program is proposed, that should be funded by an agency that has no sort of stakes with the interest of the government or the political, let's say, political party or political organization or whatsoever. And also functional independence. Okay. In whatever area the evaluation can be done, should be encouraged to be done in that area. So somebody actually mentioned that there could be some counterproductive effect of the program. Like, for example, people might negatively respond to even a positive subsidy program, just like vaccine. And then we should also consider those potential effects in those areas. We should not be sticking to, okay, health expenditure is the outcome, and okay, we must be having an evaluation that leads us to that effect. If it leads us to any other effect, we should be open to report that and to conduct that. So that independence is always there: independence of the design, independence of the data collection, independence of the analytical process, and independence of reporting. So whatever results are there should be reported. You understand that how important is that by now. The next comes the impartiality and objectivity. Again, this is closely related to the previous one, that how impartial the evaluation team should be, and how objective they should be. Objectivity normally refers to that they do not have a personal opinion, sort of personal prejudices in the data collection, maybe questionnaire development, or maybe sample selection, and so many things. So if you do that in a much structural process and more objectively, you lose that discretion, and that's good, because the data will be more objective, and then you apply some tools on that, and whatever the result, so you should report that. But impartiality, to what extent we can keep ourselves impartial, impersonal of that particular context, because that's also a challenge, because we are human being and we are dealing with other human beings. We collect data from them, maybe the evaluation team know the organization or the people in the ministry. And that's why international standards suggest that the evaluation team even should not be based within the locality of the department that's actually funding, that's actually implementing the program. For example, the Green Climate Fund suggests in their evaluation principles that even the organization is funding and implementing the program, but the impact evaluation unit or the impact evaluation cell should be based in a place that does not frequently be influenced by the people who are actually implementing the program, because that type of influence can also affect the quality of the results that they generate. Okay, so evaluation process should reflect impartiality, objectivity, and an absence of bias at all stages, including the planning, formulating, and the mandate and scope, and selecting the evaluation team. Selection is also very important. I mean, जैसे किसी ने यहाँ जिक्र भी किया कि हमने हायर कैसे करनी है हमको. How do we decide which team is better? And I was really happy to know that some of the government officials mentioned previously in group study that we were actually having an option, of giving scores to those consultants who submitted their bidding for evaluation, and there is a score for methodology as well. Okay, 20 marks were there, and the government, the officials have to give scores based on the proposed methodology. If the methodology is much stronger and more causal, they should have more score, and that consultant should actually ultimately win that, maybe because the 20 marks is enough marks for that. So that's why selecting the evaluation team is crucial for a quality evaluation process. If the team is not selected, team should have expertise in evaluation. They should have all these prerequisites: technical, data collection, experiences, and research, and so many things. So that's also one of the important standard evaluators or evaluation departments should look into. Then comes the value, the utility of the evaluation. We should look into into the amount we spent on evaluation and the value we generate from that evaluation. So how much the evaluation influences the organization's decision-making process, including the uptake of findings, lessons, and recommendations. And the credibility of the evaluation is a prerequisite for this. Like, go back to that methods. If the process is credible, then surely the uptake will be high. The government will listen to you and to your findings. It can be communicated with more confidence if the process is more credible, not flawed. And then how does the evaluation contribute to dialogue, learning, accountability, and improved institutional performance? And this is something that must be embedded into the operational process. So you have to look at two sides. One is that there is evaluation, and you expect that to what extent that evaluation can be the results of that evaluation can be generalized, maybe, or legislators can listen to you. But on the other hand, you should also look into to what extent that the results of that evaluation can be made part of the further operational or implementation process, so that next, if the program continues, so that those loopholes identified should also overcome with that. So again, the utility and value addition is very important, and that should be kept in mind. Not simply method is enough, right? And not simply that there is a good result, so that there is a reason for evaluation. That you hire evaluation team and you spend money on that. So we should also look into that utility and that value addition. Yes, please, madam. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we are actually transitioning from that to, and that we are connecting that those concerns maybe like as a government officials, and like at some point you might be commissioning evaluation of the program that you are implementing, or maybe there are proposals that you are looking into that. Then you might be considering those evaluation standards. So because these two things are closely dependent on each other, so that's why first we gave you that scenario, and then there is another one I'm going to share with you as well. In that I'm actually seeking your own experiences of to what of the extent to which you can comply with those standards, or at least we should be upholding those principles. So this is following up on that scenario, but not necessarily related to only that particular scenario. Generally speaking, we are talking about the importance of those standards, and that all government officials should be considering when they are actually making decision whether to go for evaluation or not, or whether to choose a particular evaluation team and not the other one, or whether to generalize a study or not. So that's a kind of, yeah, ongoing. Yes, this applies to all the evaluation right from the beginning till the end, and maybe if you are in the mid, still you will be considering those standards. So, and credibility and rigor again comes from the process. How credible should be the results and the evaluation? That's actually the methodology that we just discussed previously actually is also important in order for the evaluation results to be credible enough, so that people can believe on that and people can rely on that those results if they want to continue, or if they don't. By people I actually mean decision makers. Could be you, and it could be the legislators, and it could be the international organization. So evidence should be credible. That means evidence should be produced in a way that is unbiased and independent, so that and the process is rigorous process. It's not a simple comparison of before and after, and also not simple comparison of treatment versus control, right? But the design should be such that it takes care of all the worries, all the concerns. Wherever the question comes that I doubt that this effect does not go, this effect is not because of the program, it is because of something else, then those questions should always be answered, and scientifically answered, not simply claiming that there is results. But the process should be such that nobody can actually um, disagree with those results, believing that the scientific process generates something really unbiased. Um, and again, this credibility and rigor comes from the quality of data. That means the data collection process as well as data processing. So right from the survey, before the survey even, designing the questionnaire, how was it designed? And then how was it rolled out for data collection? And then what was the approach of data collection and people involved in that? And one thing that we often ignore is that sometimes we become more sort of optimistic about the results, and we expect that we should report something really positive. Else, the government might stop funding, the international agency might be concerned about their money, that they value for money and these things. We should not be concerned about these things when it comes to evaluation, because this actually requires us to be very honest and true to the impact. If there is no impact, we should say no impact. So, and therefore, if there is some limitation in the process, that should be also reported in advance. So let's say there is some problem that identifying the control group is completely not possible. So I mean, before that we design an evaluation, all these things should be identified clearly, and that's part of the evaluation process credibility and transparency. You all know about the transparency in social sciences, particularly when it comes to science. There should be nothing that we say that okay, that's the thing that we don't report, and the rest of the things we disclose to you. No, everything should be transparent and clear to the amount spent, right? The process conducted, in the type of information we use and we generate. So the evaluation team must also provide an explicit rationale when they do not incorporate stakeholders' feedback. If there are reasons that the stakeholders' feedback is not incorporated into the evaluation process, they should disclose everything, every limitation about it. But transparency means the budget spent on evaluation process should also be transparent. And also the if it's, let's say, cash transfer program, that should also be transparent. Everything should be transparent. Transparent mean that those who might be interested in looking into the implementation of the program, so all these information should be disclosed to them wherever people are asking for it. This is very, very important standard, another standard, and that's the human rights and gender equality and ethical consideration. We partially discussed this as well, but we need to integrate the universally recognized values and principles of human rights, gender equality, rights of indigenous people into all stages of evaluation. What does that mean? Does that mean that we need to, we need to either go for evaluation where we include everybody there so that nobody is left? Then how about control group? Does that mean we are violating some fundamental human rights? So evaluation should act with the tolerance, sensitivity, and respect of the cultural differences and everything. Like in this particular matter, we have a huge variation across developing countries. People with different cultures, religious backgrounds, and belief systems, they respond differently to international organizations' interventions. Sometimes they pursue those interventions negatively, sometimes they pursue those interventions positively. But the idea behind this evaluation is to ensure to those people that it is not something that we are actually incentivizing directly and selecting those people. But the idea is that before we do something really big, we actually need to test that whether it works or not. And if we have already done something really significant, sort of a large scale program, we also need to report what was the effectiveness of that. So that is also important. We need to keep in mind. Ethical, yeah, please. Sure. Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Yes. uh,
Absolutely. और जो
So
आपके
much.
आरसीटी के अंदर भी फिर ऐसा बिल्ट इन मैकेनिज्म होना चाहिए जिसमें कि आपकी पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज हैं या ट्रांसजेंडर हैं या विडोज हैं या खवातीन हैं तो वो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव सैंपल के अंदर आए रिफ्लेक्शन.
That's why we worry more about the representation of the sample. But sometimes for the sake of evaluation, if you have to exclude part of the sample for experimental purposes, then we have to find some really good grounds for that. And there are some studies that actually suggest that time oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I'll just try to wind up. That we need to make sure that sometimes those RCTs are rolled out, and then the people actually they think that we are discriminated because the others are benefited if it's gender wise or if it's like children of a particular grade in the school. Then the others can say that, okay, why not for us? Then sometimes they design that, okay, for they formulate some other intervention for them. Those two interventions might not be correlated with each other, but just to ensure that we are doing something really for experimental purposes, and other than this there is no other intention, to discriminate you either on gender basis or grades and school basis and whatsoever. um Acha, we have a tea break, and I think you must be looking. I mean, you are really tired because we are having a very uh, comprehensive exercise.
I think 6 हो रहे
4 slides.
ठीक है इसको करें फिर हम
इसके ऊपर एक वो भी एक्सरसाइज है.
कोई ना हमें मैसेज डिबेट भी करना चाहिए कि हम स्ट्रेटजाइज करें
अच्छा, हमने तो इसको इस तरह ट्रांजिशन किया. मेरा ख्याल ये था कि बीच में ब्रेक भी होगा, लेकिन वो एस्टर ने उसने ऐसे किया था.
ठीक है अब हम उसी का सोचें आई थिंक टी ब्रेक अभी कर लें
you get refreshed and then we can have continue.
आपको भी जरूरत है मुझे भी और मैं तो फिर बाहर थी लेकिन डॉक्टर इनायत को भी होगी 20 मिनट की हम टी ब्रेक लेते हैं लेट्स ट्राई कि हम 4:35 तक वापस आ जाएं और फिर हम इसको ब्रीफली रैप अप करके देन वी विल कंटिन्यू टुमारो ठीक है सो 4:35 पर प्लीज कोशिश करें वापस आने
फिर सिस्टमेटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यू.
हाँ अब वो इन्होंने एस्टर के साथ डिस्कस कर लेते हैं फिर
अब हो गया। अच्छा, क्विक अनाउंसमेंट, आप में से जिस जिसकी रिएम्बर्समेंट वाला है क्लेम, तो पीछे शाइस्ता खड़ी हुई है, ठीक है। जो बैक वाली टेबल है समन है और उनके साथ शाइस्ता है, उनसे फॉर्म ले लें जो आपको फिल आउट करना होगा बिफोर द रिएम्बर्समेंट कैन टेक प्लेस। सो मैं तो सजेस्ट करूंगी कि आप फॉर्म ले आएं अगर आपका है, ताकि वो एक बार प्रोसेस इनिशिएट हो जाए। वो आप उनसे पूछ लें क्योंकि वो GIZ के अपने जो प्रोसेसेस हैं उनके मुताबिक होगा, बट जस्ट डबल चेक क्योंकि आई एम नॉट श्योर वो किस तरह से मैनेज होता है। आपने किया था वो तो रजिस्ट्रेशन फॉर्म नहीं था, ठीक है, वो आप चेक कर लें। इज इट द सेम फॉर्म जिनने कलेक्ट कर लिया या इज इट अ डिफरेंट वन? डिफरेंट है? अच्छा राइट, जो ट्रैवल करके आए और जो सेल्फ अकोमोडेशन पर हैं उनके लिए ये वाला फॉर्म है। सो अगेन अगर आपका वो वाला क्लेम है तो आप शाइस्ता से फॉर्म ले आए। फॉर्म जब आप ले आएंगे उसके बाद एक और अनाउंसमेंट ये है कि व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप के ऊपर हसन ने पोस्ट किया है जो ड्राफ्ट है कि फोटोग्राफ के साथ हम जो नेम्स हैं उनकी क्या सीक्वेंस होगी सारा कुछ। आपने प्लीज अपने नेम्स को चेक करना है, उनके अगर स्पेलिंग में कोई इशू है आप हसन को प्लीज मैसेज कर दें कि ये स्पेलिंग सही नहीं है, टाइटल मिस हो रहा है या कुछ ऐसी चीज है, ताकि वो अपडेट हो जाए। बट प्लीज डू इट बाय द एंड ऑफ टुडे, क्योंकि कल मैंने उसको मॉर्निंग में प्रिंट आउट के लिए दे देना है, ताकि हम आपको टाइमली वो प्रिंट होके आएगा तो वील हैव टू गिव इट विद द सर्टिफिकेट्स। आपको सर्टिफिकेट्स के साथ एक ग्रुप फोटो विद द टाइटल्स एंड ऑल वो मिलेगी। एंड देन ऑब्वियसली गिवन के कोर्स कंप्लीशन क्राइटेरिया, कोर्स कंप्लीशन क्राइटेरिया आप सबको मालूम है। जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स आफ्टर सबमिटिंग असाइनमेंट सक्सेसफुली उसमें सबमिट कर लेंगे तो यू विल क्वालिफाई फॉर अ सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ अचीवमेंट जो हम बाय पोस्ट भेज देंगे। फाइनल डे के ऊपर हमारी ग्रुप फोटो होगी ज़ाहिर विद ऑल ऑफ आवर गेस्ट्स एज वेल, और वो ग्रुप फोटो भी मैं उस वक्त साथ पोस्ट कर दूंगी। ओके, आई होप ये इतनी ज़्यादा अनाउंसमेंट्स इंफॉर्मेशन ओवरलोडिंग। जी माइक आपका वो
टाइम उनको मिल जाएगा अचीवमेंट का या नहीं?
अभी मैं सिर्फ सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ पार्टिसिपेशन इसलिए दे रही हूँ क्योंकि वी हैव टू ग्रेड इट।
ओके ओके
तो इवन अगर आपने सबमिट कर भी दिया हमें ग्रेडिंग उसकी अभी करनी है। वो वंस वी गेट डन विद दिस इवेंट फिर हमारी टीम के पास इतना वो डेडिकेटेड टाइम होगा कि वी कैन मैनेज। जी सर।
ये पोर्टल मैडम हमेशा के लिए रहेगा क्योंकि
ओ ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल है, ये हमारे लास्ट टाइम भी था एंड आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू सी कि इस बार भी इंटरेस्ट है रहेगा, आपका एक्सेस भी रहेगा, सो यू कैन कंटिन्यू टू यूज इट। और जो PDF में आपने किसी ने रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि अगर PDF में सारी जो हमारी कंटेंट था वो मिल जाए, वो PDF में भी तारिक ने अपलोड किया हुआ है मूडल पे। सो एक रिसोर्सेज वाला टॉपिक आपने देखा होगा, उसके नीचे वो सब चीजें आ रही होती हैं। एनी अदर क्वेश्चन वाइल वी वेट फॉर द नेक्स्ट वन? हसन का एक और
अस्सलामुअलैकुम जी। अच्छा जी, जिनको ये फॉर्म्स मिले हैं, मैं GIZ का स्टाफ इधर है, मैं उनको रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो माइक पे एक्सप्लेन कर देते हैं, अगर आपको कोई कंफ्यूजन है तो वो क्लियर कर देंगे।
इन द मीन टाइम मैंने एजेंडा थोड़ा सा एडजस्ट किया ताकि आज हम टाइमली करें, हम आपको ज़्यादा टाइम के लिए ना रखें। सो डॉक्टर इनायत अभी ब्रीफली रैप अप करेंगे और वो आपको एक टेक होम असाइनमेंट देंगे कल। इंस्टेड ऑफ द रीकैप जो यूजुअली हम उसको स्ट्रक्चर करते हैं सुबह आपने, लेकिन पहला प्रॉमिस ये करना है कि एग्जैक्ट 9 बजे स्टार्ट करने के लिए हमें सपोर्ट करें ताकि हम एग्जैक्टली 9 बजे स्टार्ट कर लें। सो डॉक्टर इनायत फिर उस टेक होम असाइनमेंट को फर्दर उस वक्त कंटिन्यू करेंगे। और एक आपका जो सेशन हमने थोड़ा सा रीएडजस्ट किया था कि सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यूज पे वो आज हो, बट आई थिंक एंड ऑफ द डे इतनी एनर्जी हमारे पास नहीं होगी कि हम करें, सो वील टेक इट टू टुमारो मॉर्निंग एज वेल। लेकिन इन दोनों चीज़ों को करने के लिए आपका सुबह टाइम पर आना ज़रूरी है। डॉक्टर तैयबा हमारी एक्सट्रीमली पंक्चुअल पार्टिसिपेंट होती थी, बट शी हैड टू गो ऑन एन अर्जेंट वर्क कमिटमेंट। लेकिन मैं अब बाकी आप सब पे काउंट कर रही हूँ कि आप उस चीज़ को कंटिन्यू करें। राबिया का रिकैप मैं खा गई हूँ अब हाँ नहीं नहीं, उसकी भी हमारे पास स्पेस है। वी हैव रिकैप सुबह नहीं होगा बट वील हैव स्पेस फॉर दैट विद इन द डे। फ्राइडे को भी कर सकते हैं बट वी हैव स्पेस फॉर दैट टुमारो, मे बी नॉट इन द मॉर्निंग बट एट सम पॉइंट एक और जो सेशन है उसमें हम एडजस्ट करेंगे। जी सर। हाँ हाँ स्पीकर्स की, यानी कि जो उसमें वीडियोस थी और उसमें जो स्पीकर्स की। हाँ अच्छा, गेस्ट स्पीकर जैसे डॉक्टर शुजात आगे, वो ठीक है, वो मैं अरेंज करूँ। थैंक यू तारिक। हम इसको नोट कर लेंगे कि जो हमारे गेस्ट स्पीकर्स ने अपनी प्रेजेंटेशंस यूज की है ना, वो भी हमें मूडल पर अवेलेबल करनी होंगी। ओके सॉरी डॉक्टर इनायत, ओवर टू डॉक्टर इनायत नाउ। बट उससे पहले आई थिंक हमें बाकी सबको सेटल हो जाए तो फिर करते हैं। सो एज सुन एज बाकी पार्टिसिपेंट्स अपने फॉर्म्स लेकर सेटल हो जाएंगे, वी विल कंटिन्यू एंड वील रैप अप। हाँ वो हो जाएंगे, वो क्योंकि उनके मेन कैमरा पर है, वो हम ट्रांसफर करके तो वील सी के किस तरह, क्योंकि अगर उनका साइज बहुत वो लार्ज फाइल्स हुई तो शायद व्हाट्सएप पे क्वालिटी का कुछ हो जाए, बट वील शेयर देम।
Hello, hello. Okay, so I hope you are done with your reimbursement stuff. May I have your attention for a moment? I have a take home for you, and that's actually based on the presentations that I just did. These slides are already uploaded on the SharePoint. So what you're going to do is that you just take these kind of one pager, that's evaluation standard compliance assessment, and based on your own experiences in the ministries that you're working with, and the programs that you might be leading somewhere, be very honest with yourself and with your organizations, and comment on the extent to which these standards are actually complied with in your organization. And if not, let's say if you say high level of compliance, that's perfectly fine. If you say moderate level of compliance or the low level of compliance, then you must be having some ideas of why these things cannot be complied with in Pakistan or within your own ministry or organization. So you just need to do two things, to two columns there. You just need to fill these two columns. In one column, you need to mark whether the compliance is high, low, or moderate. And on the other side, you need to mention the challenges or the reasoning behind that compliance. And if you can comment on how it can be met better, that's even better if you can do that. And tomorrow morning, I'm gonna collect this back from you, and we're gonna comment shortly on this briefly, and then we move on to the evidence gap mapping and systematic literature review process. That will be done tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, so I'm distributing this to each of you. That's the take home, and tomorrow, see you then.